Welcome to Virtual Office Hours, Life After Law School, sponsored by the American Bar Association and nonprofit AccessLex Institute. The Virtual Office Hours series connects you with experts to help you thrive as a law student and prepare for life after law school. We're excited to have Jennifer DiSanza with us to talk about the financial actions you can take as you prepare for and transition to life after law school. Jennifer has spent over two decades working with law students and understands the unique nature of law school. Through her experience as a law school student affairs professional, she has assisted thousands of students throughout their legal education. Jennifer, we'll turn things over to you now.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I am so excited to be here for my second virtual office hours. I really enjoy talking to law students and helping them with their financial journey. For those of you who are new to AccessLex, I just want to give you a little overview of who we are and what Max by AccessLex is. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to legal education and also empowering the next generation of attorneys. Our Center for Legal Education Excellence is committed to improving access, increasing affordability, and enhancing the value of legal education. And they use research and advocacy to do that. The Center for Education and Financial Capability, where I work, promotes loan repayment and financial education programming for law students through our free Max by AccessLex program. We partner with over 170 law schools throughout the country to provide one-on-one coaching, webinars, and lessons to help students learn about personal finance. In addition to that, for all the work they do, all the lessons they do, they have opportunities for scholarships. But even if you don't attend one of our Max schools, you can still take advantage of our free coaching through Access Connects. When we get to the end of the session today, I will show you how to get in touch with us. I'm going to read a quick disclaimer and we will get started. The information provided in this session is being made available to assist you in developing your personal financial strategy and is not intended as investment, tax, or legal advice. You should consider whether the information is suitable for your needs and, where applicable, seek advice from an appropriate professional advisor. So in order to start thinking about life after law school, and while this may be difficult, I want you to think about what your financial goals are. You know, we tend to spend 3 or 4, if you're a part-time student, or maybe longer years in law school, living on loans for many of you, not thinking about where we want to be in even 1 year after graduation, let alone 5, 10, 15, 20 years from graduation. So let's use the framework of your financial goals to sort of talk about what you need to do after law school to achieve those goals. So once you have those goals, I want you to think about prioritizing them. For many of you, your number one goal may be to eliminate any debt you have. A large portion of that may be student loan debt, but you may also want to consider saving for retirement. Maybe you want to buy a home. Maybe you have children's education that you need to pay for. Maybe you're getting married and have a wedding to plan for. Maybe you want to travel around the world. Whatever it is, you want to prioritize that. And with that prioritization, it allows you to figure out where your money is going to go and how you want to allocate it. So let's start with what you should be doing in the next 6 months. For those of you who are graduating in the next 6 months, for those of you who might be a 1L or a 2L, these are things you can start thinking about now so you prepare for after graduation. So we're going to use the framework of securing your income, knowing your numbers, setting up your systems, and pivoting or revisiting your strategy on occasion to make sure you're achieving those financial goals that you set up for yourself. And the thing with goals, they can change over time. So you might not be thinking about having kids now, but maybe 5 years from now, that may be a priority for you. Or you may not want to buy a house now, but 5 to 10 years down the road, you do. So one of the things you're always going to have to do is revisit these goals to make sure you're keeping on track. So let's start with your income. Obviously, as you graduate, you want to think about passing your bar exam. That is obviously your number one goal. You want to get through that exam if you're taking a bar exam. But you may still not have a job, so you need to interview and negotiate. You may have to relocate depending on where you're going to work or where you want to live after graduation. And then you also want to think about, once you do have that paycheck, what does it all mean? Right? You should be thinking about all these things to make sure you understand how your money is going to work best for you. I really like this dashboard that we like to call it, because it really incorporates some of the criteria or tools that you can use to know where you are in achieving your goals. So let's start with credit score. Many of you may already know your credit score, but if you don't, your bank may have it, your credit card companies may have it, or you may use things like Discover Scorecard, Credit Karma, Credit Sesame. You may have that information there. Before you go out and pay for your credit score, look at some of the free resources that you have to understand what your credit score is. And your credit score is a measure of how you look to lenders based on your credit and your debt. The average credit score in the country right now is about 711. It's on a scale of 850. It has actually gone up during COVID slightly. So just be aware of where that is. The next thing I want you to think about is your savings rate. And the savings rate is the amount you saved plus invested. So a cash on hand plus any money you have invested. And then you're going to divide that by your monthly take-home pay. And that will give you your savings rate. And you want to keep on track of that, because how your savings is crucial to how you can fund some of those goals that you want to set for yourself. The next area that I want you to think about is your emergency fund, right? And the emergency fund is as simple as all the cash you have on hand, the total cash savings, and you want to divide it by your monthly living expenses. Tradition says you should have at least 3 to 6 months on hand as an emergency fund. As you progress through your career, that may increase. But now at this point, before you've graduated, that may seem like a whole lot of money. So starting an emergency fund with $100 and then a goal of $1,000 is a good way to start thinking about that. And then you also want to think about debt to income ratio. Your debt to income ratio is your total monthly debt payments, student loan payment, credit card payment, mortgage, all of those types of things. And you divide that by your monthly gross income. Your debt to income ratio is a number that lenders may look at. For example, if you want to apply for a mortgage and they want that number to be below 36% all in. You want to have, and ideally the lower it is, the better for your debt to income ratio. And the last number, or the last thing I want you to think about, is your net worth. And I don't want you to get stressed out about this, because oftentimes at this point in your life, your net worth is actually negative because you have more liabilities than you have assets. And your net worth is simply your assets minus your liabilities. But this is something you want to use as a gauge as you progress through your career to see how it's growing. We offer a lot of resources through Max by AccessLex. There are also free resources from other agencies that may be beneficial to you, whether it's the SEC. They have a good publication on mutual funds. mymoney.gov is a government website dedicated to financial education. And also the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has a lot of great free resources available to you to start planning on your financial goals. So this worksheet that has the dashboard is actually available in our Max by AccessLex platform. But for those of you who are not in a Max school, you can download this from our website. It's a fillable PDF. If you just go to accesslex.org and search for financial dashboard, it should come up. So now that we've talked about your priorities and securing your income, let's talk about knowing what you owe, right? So the first place you be aware of when you graduate from law school is understanding your federal student loans. If you have all federal student loans, you can find them at studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov is a great one-stop shop for anything about federal loans. It's also information about PSLF, or Public Service Loan Forgiveness. It also includes how to manage your loans. It has a lot of really helpful information about your loans. So if you haven't checked lately, the first thing you should do is track all your federal student loans at studentaid.gov. Now, some of you may have private loans. You also may have credit card debt. You may have a mortgage or a car payment. All of that outside of the federal system can be tracked on your credit report. And if you haven't done it already, you should run a credit report from each one of the credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can get free reports weekly from each of the bureaus at annualcreditreport.com. And if you do that, you have until April of 2022 to get those weekly. Outside of COVID, you actually can get them on an annual basis. But right now, if you haven't looked at your credit report, this is a great exercise to do, to run all your credit reports now to check your baseline. Make sure there is all accurate information. The information on there is correct, because there happens to be a lot of fraud and you won't know it if you don't check your credit report. So you have your federal student loans, you have your private debt, and then any other debt obligations that you may have. You may have agreements with family or friends about money that you borrowed. You may have some things that don't show up in these places. So it would be a great place to start to track what you owe and keep track of that as you go through your loan repayment and go through your career. So now you've secured your income, you know what you owe, you want to set up the systems that help you get where you want to go. And there are a few different systems that I want you to think about. Obviously, your earning system is your employment, it's your paycheck, but some of you may be working more than one job. You may have a side hustle. You may be building a business or have entrepreneurial dreams. So you want to think about that. A risk management system, it sounds fancy, but really it's talking about your insurance, right? Your health insurance for yourself, car insurance for your car, renters or homeowners insurance, pet insurance. All of these insurance products help reduce your risk. The other thing that we also include in risk management systems is having that emergency fund that I talked about earlier. So you want to definitely think about that. And then the spending systems, this is the one that everybody really associates with. And this is something we talk a lot about in the Max platform, but we can also talk to you on Access Connects about this, is budgeting and how you want to give every dollar a job. You want to think about that paycheck and that money that's coming in as a tool to help manage your expenses and manage your savings in an attempt to reach your financial goals. And then lastly, I want you to think about your investing systems, right? So at a minimum, you may have a retirement account with your employer. Some employers will have matching funds. Some employers will have different programs. You start there. And then you start building on investing. You may want to think about stocks. You may want to think about mutual funds. You may want to think about life insurance products. You may want to think about other things in investing and how you can build your portfolio to satisfy some of those financial goals. Your risk tolerance is really important and a big part of that investing. So if you have a low risk tolerance, you may take safer products. If you have a higher risk tolerance, you may be willing to do some riskier investment. But that is going to play a huge part in your investment system. Now, you may have other systems, but these are the four main ones that I want you to think about when you're trying to work towards those financial goals. Obviously, one of your big expenses after law school is repaying debt. And we at AccessLex have a couple of great webinars on loan repayment. In fact, next month, my colleague, Leandra Ross, is going to talk about student loan repayment in virtual office hours. So I encourage you to attend, but we also have webinars that you can access from our website or through the Max platform, depending on if you're at a Max school or not. And knowing which repayment option is the start of your repayment process. If you do nothing when you go into repayment, you're going to be put in a standard debt-driven plan. And a debt-driven plan is like an installment loan, a mortgage, or a car loan, where you're paying a certain amount over a specified period of time, and that's it. And you pay all your debt off. It's driven by how much you owe. Income-driven repayment, however, on the other hand, is driven by how much you make. It also takes into account your family size and where you live in the US. Income-driven plans are also the ones that people tend to gravitate to if they're thinking about public service loan forgiveness. And there are 5 different income-driven repayment plans. So there is a lot to think about. We have some good tools on our website. We have a Road to Zero guide that you can download from our webpage. And again, I encourage you to attend one of our workshops or next month's virtual office hours to learn more about student loan repayment. If you're thinking about, you may be asking yourself, how do I even decide what repayment plan I want? You have to ask yourself a couple of different things, but really think about your future and how you're going to move along your life after law school, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and what amount of money you're going to have available to pay down those loans. We have a great tool on our website to help you think about this and to simulate what your payments will look like at accesslex.org/calculator. And you can simulate what some of the repayment plans are going to look like. Another part of this calculator is the project your future. I really like this tool because you can put in your salary, you can put in some information, and you can estimate what that take-home pay is going to look like and how much money it's going to cost you to maybe pay down your loans a little earlier. We actually have a slider tool that you can test out if I'm going to pay more on my loans, how much sooner can I pay them off. So this is part of our calculator tool that I encourage you to check. So you're going along your strategy for repayment, you're going along your strategy for savings and investing and all of those things, but when do you revisit your strategy? You need to think about it if you change jobs, or you may have a salary increase or decrease. What if you get a large windfall? Some of you may be getting a bonus with your law firm job. So what am I going to do with that? Maybe you get married or divorced or have children, or your children go to school, whatever that is. These are opportune times to do a check-in and make sure that your strategy still meets the needs. A lot of times we get students who move through this, or graduates who move through this, and they haven't even looked at all the systems that they have in place and have never made any changes. And it's not serving them at their best. For example, you might have a basic life insurance policy as a single person, then you get married and have children and you never change it because you haven't thought about it. So these are all good markers to start thinking about your financial strategy after law school. You should also be doing at least annually an annual wellness check. For those of you who are in income-driven repayment plans or public service loan forgiveness, you also have things that you will have to do on a yearly basis. So you have income-driven repayment, requires you to certify your income every year. And for public service loan forgiveness, you will have to, at least in the beginning, start your employment certification to start qualifying for public service loan forgiveness. But you want to have those checkpoints that we talk about when you have major life changes or you have this annual wellness check. A lot of people do that around tax time, but you should do whatever works for you. You may want to do it quarterly. You may want to do it monthly, where you're checked to make sure all your systems are working. My biggest piece of advice in all of this is you have to pick systems and things that work for you. What worked for somebody else may not work for you. My saving strategies, my investing strategies are not going to be the same as they are for somebody else in a different situation. So you have to work with what you have and what works for you. So I've said several times today that you can set up coaching calls, you can talk to us about any of these financial issues. If you belong to a MAC school, if you go to a MAC school, you can contact us and set up a call at accesslex.org/maxonline and log into your Max account and set up a call with one of us. If you do not belong to MAC school, you can talk to the same people at accesslex.org/accessconnect. We're here for you to help set up your strategies. So I want to encourage you to contact us and set up an appointment. And it looks like I'm going to leave it on this slide. It looks like we have a question about credit freeze versus credit lock. So a credit freeze versus a credit lock is an excellent question. And I actually have a personal example to share with you. And this is why I am so concerned about credit and making sure you don't have fraud on your account. Several months ago, I was contacted by a credit bureau saying there was an inquiry on my credit. And I knew I hadn't initiated it. And because I had my credit open, anybody was able to access that information. So what you want to do, and what I ended up doing, is I put a security freeze on my account, which meant there was some fraud that happened. I actually had somebody apply for a disaster recovery loan in my name and my social security number, and it was reported to the credit bureau. So I put a security freeze on it. It's often called, each bureau calls it a little different. It could be a fraud alert. There are nuanced words about that. But what that does is it tells any potential lender that there was fraud on this account and to be extra careful. When you lock your credit, the lender can't even get access to it. So that is something to be aware of. And most of these services are free. Most of them require PINs to turn on and turn off. So you want to look with each lender. If you report fraud to one bureau, they're required to report it to the other two bureaus. I worked with Equifax and they reported it to TransUnion and Experian. And again, I want to encourage you, if you have more questions about the credit lock versus the credit freeze or whatever it is, set up a coaching call with one of us. There's 12 of us. We're all accredited financial counselors, and we can help you on your financial journey. Again, I want to thank Tracy. I want to thank the ABA. I want to thank all of you for attending today. I hope you found some important and informational nuggets that you can use in your life after law school. Have a great day, everybody.